rewind, you can fast forward, no problem. And I just want to show you, you should be able to see my calendar here on your screen. And I wanted to show you that if you go to your Google Calendar, I'm going to show you last week's. If you go back to this event later on and scroll down, you'll see that there are attachments. There's a video attachment, and then there will be a chat attachment so you can see what was discussed in the chat box, questions that were asked and answered. So if you use your Google Calendar a lot, it's right here for you to go back. And I will also send another invite update following today's session, and you can use that email to access the recordings. It does take a little while for the recordings to render following our live session. So it could be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours before you get that update email, but you will have access to this recording, no problem, no issues whatsoever. If you just go back to your Google Calendar and find that event and look for the attachments that are connected to that event.
Hey, Adam, there's a question in the chat box from April, and she's asking, when you record the meetings, that once she recorded, it only recorded the responses on the chat. And April, I believe that's 2 different attachments. So you can look at the chat responses, but there should be another attachment that also has the video.
Yeah, the video will be this little red, looks like the little clapboard that they use when they make movies. That's connected to my drive. I think you can download a copy, but again, it's kind of like downloading a whole movie. It'll be some gigs, but if you just access it through this link, it'll stream for you and you can pause, rewind, fast forward, and you're not using up storage space on your own device to download that. Thank you, Rhonda. I appreciate you. And April, thank you for asking that question too. So anything today, anything that you want to talk about related to Google Slides and the things that I'm going to be showing, just interrupt. That's what we do. Learning is messy. This could be a totally messy virtual session, and that's okay, because I feel full of grace today. I would love to extend grace to you all. I would love for you to extend grace to one another and to me, and I'll do my best to even extend a little bit of grace to myself in case I mess up, because I will mess up. It's going to happen, but I'm not too worried about that. We'll just keep trudging along. So today we are going to talk Google Slides. This is a continuation of the Summer Tech Tuesday Google 101 series. Last week we talked about kind of Google as an overview, and I think some of you were in that Google session, and when I showed you how to access your account through Google and look at your ad settings and look at your GPS location history and your voice recordings, I got a lot of feedback that was a really scary session, and it is, but again, to do modern work, we've got to use modern tools. And I feel like Google just provides some amazing tools, especially for educators like us. And I know that there's some uncertainty with what's going to happen when we return back to school. And from the consortia perspective and from your district leaders, lead team principals, what we've been hearing is just how can we serve in a way where we're addressing how to use technology should distance learning be a factor going forward. I know we all got our feet, we were all thrown in with the wolves a few months ago, and it does cause some upheaval, and more importantly, I think it's safe to address it. It does cause some anxiety. I like to view this as a time to learn and a time to grow. I think it's a watershed moment in our history. And so I could go down the negative road, but I really want to be a problem solver, not a problem admirer. And so I'm going to theme this around some of the basics of Google Slides if you've never used Google Slides before. But looking at some of the participants that joined today, I know some of you have already gotten some of the Google Slides things that we've offered here. So I'm going to show some add-on extensions for Google Slides today in an attempt to really probe how can we use this tool to engage students. And boy, it's just saying that sentence, it feels cliche, and but there are ways. There are ways to use this technology in a way where we're not only giving information to students, but we're getting information from students either synchronously or asynchronously, and it's a way to connect, and it's a way to give students an application to really perform and to show their learning off. So that's what I hope we get out of today as we go through this. And so you will be able to see everything on my desktop as we go through the day together. And I can't implore enough to use the chat box as you see fit, or turn on your microphone and ask away. Ask those questions as they come up. And anyway, let's get started. So Google Slides. Google Slides falls under the umbrella of what we call Google Apps, or those Google applications. It is a form of a Google Doc. People talk about Google Docs, and we know that's word processing, and it looks like Microsoft Word. Acts a little bit differently. And Google Slides is one of those applications. And if you have a district Google account or a school Google account, you'll have all the features and benefits of this. So one way to access slides is by going to your Drive. So this is drive.google.com. I have this bookmarked right here. It is a bookmark that always gets me back to this location because I find that I'm working here all the time. But I know that working with a lot of you, you have concerns about, well, people share so many things with me. I have the biggest Google Drive with things that have been shared. Sometimes I get a little disorganized, and that's okay. One way that you can quickly find Google Slides from this interface, from this Google Drive webpage, is to do an advanced search. So if you'll notice up in the search bar up here, there's a little caret icon, and you can actually select to see presentations that are in your Drive. So I have a huge Drive because I've been using this tool for almost a decade now, what feels like 2 decades sometimes, honestly. So I got a lot of stuff. So if I want to find a slides presentation I made on mitosis and meiosis, I can just put in a keyword there, and I've selected that I want it to be a presentation. I can click search, and anything that's a presentation comes up. Now I can see what the issue is. I'm just logged into my personal account and not my work account, so that could kind of screw things up depending upon what account you're actually in. So let's try that again. I'm going to look for presentations, and this time I'm just going to look for science because I'm hedging my bet that something will show up. And here we go. Everything related to science that's a Google slide. How do I know it's a Google slide? I ask the search bar to filter, and I also see this little icon. That means it is a Google slide. You'll also notice that in your Google Drive account, anything that's a Google application, like slides, docs, drawings, those types of things, the forms, they actually don't count against size limits of your Drive. You can see here that there is no size associated with them. Google doesn't take into account their own products when they're determining how much space you're taking up in your drive. Now, if you save anything else in your drive, like a PowerPoint will start counting against the space that's available in your drive. It's really good to know for your personal. My personal, after, again, almost a decade of using it, is approaching 90% full capacity of 15 gigs. But our work accounts, our district Google accounts, are relatively unlimited in space. So that's also good to know. So we just looked at the advanced search feature, and this goes for any type of file that here. So if it's a document like a Word document or a Google Doc that has the word science, I can use that advanced search tool right here to quickly find that. Another way is to use the shortcut slides.google.com. And I like this when I think about organizing, especially if I have a lot of shared things or if I've created lots of different types of apps through Google. When I go to slides.google.com, I only see slide decks that I've created through Google. So I see nothing else. And it filters, and what I'm looking at right now are the most recent things that I've worked on. So these are, everything that's up here at the top is something that I recently opened, which means if I go this route, I can quickly get back into what I was last doing. So you've got a couple options of how you can find your Google Slides. You can go through your drive and do that filtered search, or you can come directly to the slides.google.com webpage and go right into that. I'm looking at my notes here because there is even a little trick in the URL up here. A lot of people don't know you can give certain commands up in the URL bar here for Google Chrome. So if I type in deck.new, it automatically opens up a blank canvas Google slide for me to start working with. That's just a quick little trick, deck.new, deck.new. The same thing works for Google Docs. If you put doc.new in, you'll get a blank doc. Sheets, form, the same thing for all of the Google applications that are out there. So here it is. This is our blank canvas. With this, anything is relatively possible. I like to think about it like that. And now I think what we'll do is start taking a look at kind of, for me, from my perspective, why I enjoy working with Google Slides. And it has to do with collaboration, and it has to do with collaboration between adults as well as collaboration between students. I've used it for both purposes, and I like the efficiency. And I always joke, and some of you may not find this funny because you may be like me. I don't know if you can see this. This was my master thumb drive. I even put a label like Master Azula because 5-6 years ago, my whole life depended upon what I had on my flash drive. And if I lost my most recent files, I was down the river, for lack of a better term, right? We used to live via our CD-ROMs, our DVD-ROMs, our floppies, how we could move our data around. Well, Google kind of solved that for us by creating web tools that we can access anywhere. And another good benefit of that is that it's continuously saving your work. I don't know if you've ever had this happen. Remember when you were typing your research paper and you forgot to hit save for an hour and the power went out? And it was just like the world was ending. Thank God our software companies started adding like auto save features and things like that. You have the same thing here with the Google apps like Slides, is that there's a continuous saving of any changes that are going on. And if the purpose is around collaborating with either colleagues or students, I think the first place that we really want to start taking a look at is our sharing settings. Because if I'm not sharing this, there's really a limited way for me to share my information as well as collect information back from colleagues and students. And I will sound real repetitive. So if you're playing bingo, you get the colleagues and students, you've gotten the synchronous and asynchronous talk. So I'm sure I'll hit up all the classics throughout today. But the point is, we need to share if we're going to collaborate. And so we have a couple ways to do that. Right up here in the top right-hand corner, we have this bright yellow share button. You'll notice that there is a little lock there, and if I hover my mouse cursor, it is saying that this slide deck is private to only me. Remember, I just hit, what did I hit? Deck.new, so I just started a new one. It doesn't live in a folder yet, and I haven't shared it with anyone, so it's pretty unorganized and it only belongs to me. But if I want to share this, I have a couple ways to do that. So I'm going to click on share. I'm going to give this a name. We'll call it Test 2020. I'm going to save it. It's always important to name your documents. So here, if you haven't shared anything in a while on one of the Google apps, the whole interface went through a little facelift recently in the past few months. So it acts the same. It just looks a little bit different. And so here's where I could share. Now, if I have people in my contact list with their first name, last name, great, that's going to be easy to find. If I have email addresses, I can do it that way as well. So we are going to spam my wife right now. So I have added her. I've added her through her email. And I'm even going to add myself on here as well, so we can just see what that looks like when you add multiple people. And since Rhonda Client is here, I'm going to type and find her and add her because it's just one more person. And hey, while we're at it, maybe Jake's in here, and I'm going to add Jake. Now, there's a little box to notify people that I've shared something with them, okay? And I can write a little message like, we are just goofing around. And I know that I spelled goofing that way, right? Would it make you feel better if I just added like a little apostrophe? Because we're just goofing around out here in Palatka. But I got to make a few choices here, because right now, the way I have this set up is that everyone that I'm adding to this document is an editor of this document. And I can see that right here via this little editor drop down. So on a slide deck in Google Slides, you can provide 3 levels of collaboration. You can have someone as a viewer, which means they can't change anything. They can only look. You can establish them as a commenter, which means they can leave you feedback pieces. And honestly, when I've seen students create their own slide decks, one successful bit of instructional practice that I've seen is for the teacher to have access to their slide decks and provide feedback comments along the way. It is a great way to provide feedback where you're not changing what someone created on the slide. You have no way to take a picture out or add words or delete things. You can only leave little comments that are off to the side. If you've ever done a group project on any of the Google applications, you'll notice that you can even leave comments requesting that further work be done or something be added. and whoever you assign that to can check that comment as resolved. And I'll show you that later. I know I'm probably putting the cart before the horse, but comments are a great way to provide feedback. I just want to say that. But if I leave them as editors, that means they have full carte blanche permissions to make any changes that they want to on this slide deck. Well, for this group of fine people, I'm totally comfortable with making them full editors to this doc. Now, I also have a cog, and the way Google works, if you see a cog wheel or a gear, I guess a gear, I think about the cogs on the gear. If you see a little gear, that has something to do with settings or how something is configured. So if I look at what's behind there, I can see that there are a couple things that are turned on that are flagged here. One thing is that I'm giving these people the right to share with other folks and to change permissions themselves. That may not be the case. Maybe I don't want them to do that. So I can just check it off. And do I want to give people who can view and comment the option to download, print, and copy this file? Most of the time, that's not a big deal because they're not able to change a slide. Remember, they can only view or comment. So I'm not too concerned with that. So I'm going to go back, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click this little send, and this is going to send an email to them, whatever email is associated with this account that I've just added here. It's going to send them an email, and it's going to say, hey, Adam has shared something with you. Click this link and it'll open right up for you and you can start working in it. It's also going to share it on Google Drive under their My Shared or Shared With Me folder. So I'm going to click send. I am going to go to my work drive here, and let's see if you notice that test 2020, it says Adam Azula, that's my personal, just shared it with my work. It came up under the quick access. If I go to shared with me, you'll notice that it's the first thing that comes up. And also you'll probably just see that I got an email that I had just shared this with myself. So it works very fast, provided that you have a good internet connection. If I was at my house, there would be no way I can get this because we actually don't have internet right now. And so anyway, that's what happens whenever you share something. It triggers a whole series of actions to happen. The emails, the Google Drive organization, and I've actually made that so large that I can't even see my screen. Let me get this just a little bit smaller here. This is, I think I may have made my first, there we go. Now it's starting to look normal. So I have shared in that way so that they can edit and they can now work with me on this project. A good example of something, this is a presentation that my wife and I worked on together. I think at this time we were in different hotel rooms across the state, but we were able to collaborate at the same time on the same document to get stuff done. Now, last time I checked, you could have 50 people on one Google Slides actually editing at the same time. So I doubt that you would ever run into that. I've never run into that issue, but just to let you know, there is a limit on the number of people that can be editing something at the same exact time. But it's a way to get stuff done. Now, I've shared that so they can edit it. There's also another way to share, which is to use a URL link. I don't know what URL stands for. I just pronounce it as URL. But if you wanted to just send a link like through an email, you could do that as well. Now here it's saying, get a link to this guy. But there are lots of settings around this. only people added can open with this link. So only these people that I've added can open. I don't want that. Maybe I want to create a link that more people can access this. So I can change some settings here. Anyone with the link as a viewer, I can make them a commenter. It's probably really dangerous to create an anyone with the link who can edit, because once your link goes out there, anybody can come and change anything. So you should be aware of that. And I'll show you some scenarios later on where you would actually share via these means. And if you're using Google Classroom, there are simple ways to just push out your slide deck to your students. So those are essentially the sharing settings on here, because one of the purposes of having created a slide deck is to actually share this information with the world, whatever the content may be that you're using for your courses and classes. I'm going to stop. Are there any questions around sharing that any of you have that you want to turn on your mic or type in the chat box?
Adam, I have
Yeah.
a question.
Go ahead.
So whenever you share it, it gives you a little box to type in, kind of like a note.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to go back and access that afterward?
No, not once it's been sent out. You can resend it, and you can resend it to the same people over and over again. So just like I shared with these fine folks earlier, I could simply share, let's go back and let's add Rhonda Clyott, let's add Jake, let's add me, whoops, there's my wife, let's add me. Now I could say, oops, this is due on Thursday, we aren't goofing around now, please get to work. And so I'm just going to send that again, and it'll trigger the whole sequence of an email going out once again. And that would be the way that you could kind of edit or change that message out. But good question.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Rhonda, for addressing Robert's question about PowerPoint. That's a really good question. You know, on this flash drive right here, I have years worth of PowerPoints. And what I can do is I can save this to my Google Drive, anything on here, I can just drag and drop and then open it up in Google Slides as a Google slide. Now, when you do that, I caution you, things like animations, some of the formatting things, they may not work properly. You may have to go back and fix something through the Google interface. So it's always a good rule of thumb that if you're opening up an old PowerPoint in Google Slides, that you look at it in the presentation mode to ensure it looks the way you want it to look and it acts the way you want it to act. Also, there's some other functionality here where, let's say someone gives you a Google Slides deck, but you would prefer to have it in PowerPoint because maybe that's where your comfort is right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can go to File on anything that is shared with you in a Google slide deck format, and you can actually choose to download it as a PowerPoint. Again, know that there's a caveat that if there are animations or transitions, certain file types, everything may not translate over, but for the most part, like 93% of the stuff works every time. 60% of the time it works every time. Maybe I should have said that. You can also download your slide deck as a PDF. Now, here's Here's my thoughts on PDF. I am really big on sharing PDFs with people who I don't know what technology they have. I'm not sure if they're on a Mac. I'm not sure if they're on a PC, especially caregivers and parents. I like to send stuff out as a PDF file. The reason being that any device that's out there can open a PDF. Not every device is going to be able to open a doc, a PowerPoint. Not every device may be able to open a Google Slides. But generally speaking, a majority of the devices out there, including phones, including tablets, can open a PDF. And I am safe a lot of times by downloading things as a PDF themselves. So that was just a little PowerPoint connection there that I kind of wanted to give you all. All right. So another way to share, I wanted to show you a little trick that I learned here, is that let's say you want to share this Google slide deck, but you don't want anybody editing your work, and you want them to make a copy of your work. So this could be an instance where, let's say you don't have Google Classroom, but you want students to take a template that you've created and you want them to expound on that template. You want them to add things to it, but you don't want them to do it with your original designed thing that you've made. You want to force, this is the best way to put it, you want to force someone to make a copy of your Google slide. Well, a neat trick is, let's say you've opened a slide deck like this one right here. If you notice in the URL bar, it ends with edit. And I wish I could zoom in on my URL bar. I know it's really small, but we're recording this so you can go back and watch. If you take out edit and anything after the word edit, and you add copy to the end of that URL. Now let's say you email this to students, you email it to someone else, whoever. You've changed your sharing settings so that other people can see this. That's great. If you add copy and they use your link, this is what they see first. They see there is no way out of this other than to make a copy. So I am forced right here to make a copy of something that's already created. Again, you don't want anyone changing your original template. You want to keep your template pure, but you want someone to manipulate it, like students. You want students to do research and add, and maybe in teams or groups develop some slides together. You can force them to make a copy. So you see now this one says copy of NEFAC Connect, copy of the original file name, because it is a copy that I forced someone to make. So, and that works again for all of these. If I just take out edit, oops, I went to the wrong, clicked my bookmark, sorry. If you take out edit and everything after edit and replace it with copy, this link, if you share this, you're forcing someone to make a copy of your original document, which is super helpful and from my perspective. I think if you're using Google Classroom, it forces students most of the time to create a copy of their own, which is really good to know, and one of the benefits of using that tool. But that being said, I know some of you were here last time, and I want to talk about kind of the themes, the backgrounds, the images, and things like that that get used with slide decks. This was actually one that I created the background, I created the theme here, and you can tell because it's very, very basic. I started getting better and I started being able to develop my own slide decks, but I am no artist by any means whatsoever. But I could do enough to kind of create some fun and engaging themes. If you use a white background with text, you're going to get your message across, but I guess maybe because of the world we live in, it just looks a little plain Jane if it's just black text on a white background. So a lot of us, and we've been doing this for years, and you've been doing it for years, I'm sure, try to add those images that are going to be engaging. There are so many studies on the brain where they've done PET scans and MRIs around the brain's ability to store images. And it's a hallmark of some of the professional learning that we've done here, that when it comes to students, it's really on us to think about what images are presented to students, because the human brain, believe it or not, has an almost unlimited capacity to store images. And I love that fact. So including images that are gripping and a theme that really correlates to your subject and your content is really engaging. It brings people in. It really shows some forethought. But we're not all artists. And I'm going to show you, you probably saw this last time if you joined me, slides. I'm going to type it right here, sorry. Slidescarnival.com. These are free pre-made templates for Google Slides as well as PowerPoint. I know a lot of you were in the PowerPoint session earlier. So this offers you both. They're free artist-created slide decks, and you can, there's a Jeopardy, if you wanted a Jeopardy presentation template. Let's go take a look at that. I'm going to click on that. And on Slides Carnival, it's going to tell me a little bit about it. And if I scroll down, it actually has an embedded presentation there. So I could go through and look at each one of these slides that are contained here. So it looks like if you use this slide deck, it is a really slick, modern looking Jeopardy game. And I know we've been doing this on PowerPoint for years. But this actually allows you to type in the questions and answers, and it links it so you have a game board and you can just click to go back to the original panel. Well, I really like this. So if I want this, all I have to do is click Use as a Google Slides theme, and look what they're doing here. If I click Use Template, then it has now placed this template in my drive. I can move it to a folder if needs be, but I can get to work on this. If I want to organize it right away, I could click this little move icon and choose which folder I want it to go to. I find that that kind of discipline around this will alleviate a lot of future headaches down the road. So if you get into the habit of every time you create or every time you accept a slide deck, placing it in the correct file folder that it needs to go to is just outstanding discipline, because it'll always be there whenever you need to go back to it, and you can always come back and reorganize it should you need to later. So this is essentially a free Jeopardy slide deck. I love it. I think it's a great idea. That was going to slidescarnival.com. You can click any of these more universal themes of like creative, for example, and then scroll through and bring these over, and then you're ready to start creating right away from these free templates. There's all, yes.
There is a question, and I just wanted to stop you right here because this might be a good place for you to show. But there was a good question about importing your own background, like I'm assuming like if you want to do your own picture or whatever. Is this a good place for you to show that?
I would love to. Yeah, this is great. Let's go to our blank one. Where's our other test? Here we go. Let's open this one up. So if I want to change the background on an individual slide, for example, I've only got one slide here, so this is going to be real individual. You can right click, excuse me, I feel like I'm clicking today. Let me get another sip of water. You can right click on that individual slide and click to change the background. Now it's going to give you some options. Maybe I just want to change the color. Maybe I just want to make a little gradient here. So I'm going to just pick this little blue and click done. All right, well, that looks a lot better than just a sterile white One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest looking slide. Okay, we're getting there. But what if I've got an image that I want to use? So for example, let's do a Google image search for map of the world. All right, let's say I'm going to go to images here. I'm going to go to tools, and I'm going to select, I want a big image of the world. And I kind of want it to be a TV width, like the same kind of aspect ratio of our slide. So I don't want to use this stocky one. This is pretty close. This is pretty close too. Let's see if this works. So I am going to now copy this image address. We're going to test a lot of things in a little while here. So let's test this first. This image lives at a certain address, just like the address that you live at your house. One thing that the Google tools are great about is finding the locations of addresses and displaying information about them. So let's say I really like this one, and I'm going to right click on this little image preview, and I'm going to select copy image address. All right, now I'm going to go back to my presentation. I'm going to right click again on change the background, but this time I'm going to select choose an image. Now Google, anytime you insert an image in one of the apps, you're going to get a screen that looks very similar to this. You have a lot of options. You can upload an image from your computer. So maybe you took a picture that you want to use. You could turn your device's camera on. Well, my camera is already on. You could do a Google image search from right here. You could do a Google Drive image search of your drive, or you can just type in the URL of where that image was. So I went and right-clicked and copied that image address, and I just pasted it right here. So if I click Insert Image, and then done, now I have a new background. So I can't move it. No one can manipulate it. It's actually a part of the background now. And this wouldn't this be great for like a geography class or a social studies class to have this as part of a slide deck? I think it's a wonderful idea. Now, if I create a new slide, nothing there. But we'll get into master slides here in a minute. But you could change up each individual slide's background. If you wanted to search for an image, let's say you use this Google image search, and let's say we're doing ancient Greece. From right here in the slides program, in the application, I can do a Google image search, and I really like this of the Parthenon. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to insert. I'm going to hit done. And it is now the background for this slide. If I want to make it more than just this slide, I could right click and duplicate this slide, and there I've got another copy of it. Another theme is right clicking on stuff is your friend. If you know, using that right click, it may be my laptop is two right fingers or two fingers, the same as my MacBook was. It never hurts to right click on something because it's going to give you some options for what you can do. So I'm a big fan of that. Are there any other questions? I see you guys are writing Slides Carnival. Very good. Another free one is slidesgo.com. And Slides Go, I will say, has lately just become the most amazing way for artists to share their creation and give you free slide decks. There are so many that are added here on a weekly basis that Slides Carnival is good for some generic things, but here you've got some detail work that for your content may align perfectly. You may find something scientific or health related, just depending upon where you're at or what you're teaching here. There are a ton of different types of free slide decks. So if I go to education, for example, here are some of the new ones: anatomy lessons, World Environment Day. Now, no one says that you have to use them based upon what they're called. You can make it whatever you want it to be. Here's a back to school theme. I really like this sketch notes lesson. Here's a chalkboard, biology. They've kind of pre-themed these out only because all the art relates to it. So for instance, here we're doing one on distance learning right now. So let's click on distance learning. I can click through and look and see what all the layouts look like that are a part of this slide deck. This has great transitions. I like the notebook kind of feel. I like the text that they use, the font. It comes across as very clear. So if I like that, all I have to do is click on Use as a Google Slides theme. Notice they do the trick I showed you earlier, forcing me to make a copy rather than change the original or manipulate the original in any way whatsoever. So I can make a copy, and it's thinking right now.
Adam, I have a question while we're waiting on that to think.
Go ahead, Katrina.
Just as you inserted an image with a URL, or if it's saved on your computer, would you be able to change the slides in slidesgo.com and Slides Carnival?
Oh, most definitely. Good question. Right now, I have copied that Slides Go slide deck here. So I could come to change background, and let's say I want to, let's search for an image of Tampa. I don't know why Tampa came to my mind, but it did. So I could just grab this picture of the Tampa skyline and hit insert. Oh, it's too big. Oh, that's unfortunate. I never have seen the limit. Let's try this again. There we go. And if you notice, it did change the background. So that's a really good question. Most everything here I can move, like this. Whoa, what if I wanted it to say cool? I could change that. That's cool. And I could even move this around, and maybe if I didn't like it, I could delete it. Maybe I could change the color of the font. All that's up for grabs. So yes, good question, Katricia. You will have the ability, if you copy one of these pre-made templates, to change things on the template. Now, to go down a rabbit hole from Katricia's question, notice that you can't see, but I'm clicking on this white notebook paper here. And that I can't manipulate that. That's because the artist put that as part of the master slide deck. So I'm going to get real meta here with you for a minute. So hang in there. Don't worry, this is recorded. You could go back. Rome wasn't built in a day. So don't worry. But a little advanced tip here is if you wanted to change something that seemed like it was set in stone. Now these things I can move and manipulate, but like the pieces of, oh, I can move the pieces of tape, but I can't move this white piece of paper. If you go to slide and you go to edit master, now my screen has changed because I'm actually going to be able to edit the master layouts. So these are this is where all these designs come from. This is how they're set in stone. Well, I guess it's temporary stone because I'm about to change it. So notice, whereas I couldn't click, where was that one slide? Here. Where I couldn't move this white sheet of notebook paper that's an image, here I can take it out completely. The master slide is all the background stuff, not just the background of the slide, but the controls for the font, the color of the font, all that. If you make a change on the master slide, it's going to affect all the other slides here. So if I didn't like this font, if I change it to the font that I do like, it's going to change it on any slide that is using that font. There is nothing worse than having to go through each individual slide of a slide deck and changing the font over, change the size, change the color. If you do it from the master slide, however, all those changes will take effect on all of the other slides that are here. So if I get out of the master view and if I just click on the slides that I'm building here, notice that white piece of notebook paper that I deleted was gone, and the text has now changed to what I wanted it to be. So anytime I create a new text box, it's the Montserrat font that I created at the beginning.
Hey, Adam, would you go back over one more time how to find the master slide?
Sure. So I want you to pay close attention because the screen's going to change just ever so slightly. So if you notice, I have my editing slides down the left-hand side. If I go up to slide and I scroll down to edit the master, now notice I have two columns. The column on the left-hand side is what I'm manipulating for my slideshow. The column that's to the right of that, those are the master layout slides. So I could, again, take away this notebook paper. I'm just clicking delete, and this is going to have an effect on all of the other slides on the left-hand side that are using these layouts. So notice if I delete it here, it's going to delete it for good from this presentation. You'll know you're working on the master slides because you've got this little dark gray box, this frame that surrounds everything. So if I click over to the left-hand side now, you'll notice that I've deleted away a lot of the notebook paper that was locked into the background by the artist. And if I right-click and click Apply Layout, you'll notice that all of these layout slides are now missing that notebook paper that I've deleted out. It's gone because I've taken it away from the master slide. The master slide is cool if you want to add like a watermark or a logo or a URL to the side. That would be something that you could do from the master as well. So we've talked a lot about the sharing settings, and we've talked a little bit about editing slides. We've changed backgrounds. Notice this is that background that I put in from Tampa. But it kind of goes without saying that if you create a slide deck, the hopes would be that you're going to present that slide deck. So slides exist in two kind of states of existence. Maybe this is too existential. You have your editing view. This is where collaboration and setup is all going to come into play, is when you're actually editing and creating. But you're creating all of this in the hopes to project or to present this on the web somehow. So you'll see right next to share is the old present button, because the purpose is we want to show this off. We want to display it. Some of you have been in your classrooms, and I know that you spend a lot of time on your slide decks because you're going to project it, and it's an important piece of your instructional practice, is to have the anchoring, is to present the images, is to have graphic organizer examples projected up there. That is such a great purpose for a tool like this. So I kind of want to show you some presentation things, because I want to end with us building and playing around a little bit. So I want to just kind of go over what you can do. So if I wanted to present, for example, let's see, let's say we're going to do this lesson on 9th through 12th grade ELA, where we're looking at some classic literary works. Notice how now I get this beautiful full screen. It's a 16:9 aspect ratio. Looks real similar to our big 4K TVs in our house, but the screen is now filled with the slides that we created through the editing view, because now we're in present view. Let me move this little box over to the side. If I move my mouse cursor down to the bottom of my screen, I have what are called my presenter controls. So these are my controls that would, whatever machine I'm presenting from, I'm going to have this control down there. And I kind of want to show you what you can do with some of these controls, because you do have some options. So of course, and I'm sorry that I can't zoom in, so hopefully you're seeing this on your machine. Now I could advance the slides. I could use this little index and quickly go to a slide, skipping slides if I wanted to, or I can use some of these other controls. One that I really like for use in the classroom, if you are using Google Slides as part of your instruction, is to turn on the closed captioning feature. You may have a student who has some difficulties hearing. I have been a drummer for 25 years of my life. I am hard of hearing. I actually watch TV at the house with closed captionings turned on, which, don't get me started, sometimes closed captionings ruin the joke in a comedy when you can read ahead. But in the classroom, you can turn on the closed captioning feature, and notice I'm not doing anything with my hands right now. The artificial intelligence and my microphone are working really hard to present the words that I'm saying out loud. Now, if you'll notice, there's no punctuation, there's no capital letters. It's not that good yet as far as guessing through the inflection of your voice. Am I asking a question? See, it doesn't add that. And if I talk to it like I talk to my phone, where I go question mark, parentheses, period, it doesn't pick up on those, but that's okay, because really, we don't want to let that be another impediment to a student who may need a little accommodation in the classroom. And if you record yourself talking and narrating a Google slide, you can leave this on too, and it'll be picked up as part of your recording as well. So that is the closed captioning feature. I'm going to turn it off, and now I'm going to show you the question and answer feature, because we're going to end with how can students engage in a Google slide? What are some products and things that I can think about? So this little icon down here that says Q&A or question and answer, these are what are called your audience tools for a presentation. So we can give the audience tools. Now the audience can be live with us synchronously, or they can be away from us asynchronously. These will work. I think it works a little better, obviously, if it's done in part with a synchronous lesson. But I think if you think outside the box, there are some applications for the asynchronous too, or when students aren't with you and they're away and they're accessing this at a different time. So if I turn on question and answer, this little box appears. If you have 2 monitors in the classroom, or you've got a docking station for your laptop, this would be on the other screen. So you're going to get this little box here, this little frame, where again you could look at, you could quickly go to a slide if needs be, but you can also turn on the audience tools from here. So what just happened is that when I turned on the audience tools, you'll notice at the top of my slide deck, now there's a bar that says ask a question at slides.app. Blah, blah, blah. You get this whole long link here. But if someone were to use that link, they could send you questions that you would be able to see as part of your presenter tool control right here. Okay, so let's try this out. And if you want to try this with me as well, I'm going to leave this URL up here. I'm going to grab my phone as my second device, and I'm actually going to go to this address. And I think it is case sensitive, so that would have to be a capital V and a lowercase x and M6. So on my device, I know it may be really, really hard to see. I may not be doing anything worthwhile by holding that up in front of the camera, but now my phone has turned into a mechanism for me to talk with the instructor, talk with the teacher. So I could ask a question. I could make a statement. So maybe my question is, who is your favorite author? This would be that good distracting question when you're on a roll and you're being evaluated by your principal and a kid is just asking you, oh, cool, look, you guys are actually doing it. So I didn't do this yet. Who's your favorite author? I'm gonna submit this and mine will come up there. Now, because I'm signed in to my Google account, you'll notice that my picture is there. So if you were sharing this with your students and they were on their Chromebooks, they would be signed into Google, so you would see their names. So think about this artifact of learning that's being created here. You may want the students to respond to a prompt. You may want them to write their own authentic sentence using this vocabulary you've been talking about. You could do that here. My favorite superhero. This would be the question that a student would ask in the middle of an evaluation. I'm going to say, I think my favorite superhero is the Punisher. I just keep, it's a hard line between Captain America, the Punisher, and Wolverine probably. So these are good questions. Now, if you wanted to, you see there's a little present button. I could click that and actually present someone's question to the larger group if I was projecting. Maybe I was going to showcase an answer, show off some work, give some feedback to a group of students who are working together. And then to get that all I have to do is hit hide. I could give feedback, so I could give like, oh wait, I don't have any feedback controls here. Captain America, I like it. Let's see what I'm seeing from my device here. Oh, so the people who are responding can actually see everything from their device and give thumbs up or thumbs down. So here you have another feedback mechanism for the classroom where on a Chromebook or on a tablet or on a phone, students can use the old thumb up, thumbs down method to give some, all right, I got some Spider-Man, I got some Captain America. Nothing beats the Captain America from the 1940s when, I mean, that artwork and putting him in those situations where he's battling against the Axis powers, that's really, I think I enjoy that the best. And let's see, I also noticed that as things get voted, they go up to the top of this queue here. And this is great because I truly do have an artifact of interaction and of learning. So this is the Q&A. If you want to know how to get back there, on your presentation controls down at the bottom, there's a little button for Q&A, and you can turn it on. And remember, when you turn it on, oops, I gotta shrink. Oh, I'm shrinking the wrong box down. Oh my gosh, I think I've gommed it all up now. There we go. When you turn on the question and answer, you'll get this little banner at the top of your presentation that tells people where to go. And it's always the same beginning URL, slides.app.goo.gl. It's always got a different ending to it as part of that URL. So that's one way to engage. And it's already 2:10. Man, I could talk about this stuff forever, no doubt. So going back to getting students engaged with this, let me show you the next thing. And I think we can all participate in this. I talk a lot about hot rods. If you've ever joined any of my Google sessions before, I talk about how the stock Google product is kind of like an old 1934 Ford. But now we have app developers and program developers who are like the hot rod kids of the late 50s and 60s, who take these old jalopies and say, well, that's a good base, but if I put a bigger engine, if I put tires in the back, if I put a new exhaust, a new carburetor, this thing is going to be a hot rod, right? And we're going to drag on the salt flats. It seems very idyllic. But if you've ever seen Grease, there you go. There's the example. You can actually add things on to your Google environment that kind of trick out, for lack of a better term, the application itself. So there is an application called Poll Everywhere, and it's polleverywhere.com. There's a free version of this. You can sign in with Google and get a free account. And this allows you to build polls that students and colleagues can engage in. And not just polls, you can do surveys, you can ask open-ended questions, or you can build word clouds together. So we're going to try this because one thing that I added on to my Google, you'll notice there's a little link here called add-ons. I have added hot rod pieces here. So with your phone, we're going to try this out. Oh no, don't tell me my activity was deleted. Well, let's try it from a new presentation. All right. Now you can see how the sausage gets made here. Oh, I guess I have to sign in. Maybe I got signed out. And of course I can't remember what I signed in with. Oh, I don't want to sign in with that. Bear with me, everybody. I'm sure you can feel my pain. See if it told me that's no good. Password's incorrect.
Can you sign in using your Google account, Adam?
No, because I don't think I originally used it years ago. Here we go. All right. So what I'm going to do is take this. Now, Poll Everywhere, it's its own product, but they created an add-on or an extension for Google Slides, so I can show live results from Poll Everywhere as part of my slide deck. So I'm going to title this, "What city are you currently in right now?" I selected a word cloud as our thing here, so let's hopefully this is going to work. Told you we were going to build some stuff and do some stuff on the fly today. Maybe because I have 20 tabs open though, it's not liking me right now. While that works, we are going to log into the application. Okay, I'm going to turn this on. I just turned this on in my account. Oh, but of course it's not, it still hasn't worked. Let's try this one more time. Poll Everywhere, insert an activity. All right, maybe it'll work this time. Well, it's going to get right to the end and it's going to stop. You knew it was going to happen, didn't you? On the day that I wanted to use it. Well, darn. Let me go back. Maybe I can use this one. Let's try this again. All right. So sorry about that. All right. So if you'll notice through my editing view here, you don't see anything, and you won't see anything unless you're in presentation mode for this. So I built this question in Poll Everywhere, and I'm going to go into present mode, and I want you guys on your phone, or if you want to open another tab, that's okay. But if you, through your text messaging, text the number 37607, and then follow the instructions, you'll see this actually kind of come to life. So I'm going to give you a minute. If you want to participate in this, we're going to take a minute to see what this looks like as we build it out. So looks like, all right, here we go. We've got McClenny, we've got Palm Coast, we've got Palaca. Palaca being the largest. Whatever has the most replies, that's the word that's going to be the biggest that you see here. Look, more from Palm Coast. Palm Coast is getting bigger. We've got Tallahassee, Lake City. Cool. Fort White, I see you there. So you'll notice as words get entered more than once, they stay really large up on the screen here. And the ones that have the least amount of repeats are the smaller ones. Thank you for joining from May, all the way from Lafayette County. I love it. So this again is a great way to engage students with vocabulary, thinking through that lens, or just picking their brains and getting ideas. This is something that can be done through a Chromebook, through a laptop, through a tablet, through a phone. It gives you lots of options. I have used the free version for probably 4 years now. I don't have the paid version of this. And I find that it works just as fine for the things that I would do with students or the things that I would do with colleagues. It's all cool. Watch what happens if I hit escape and I go out of presentation mode. You don't see any of those replies. But if I click present again, everything kind of comes back up here. So Poll Everywhere is one of those add-ons that you can add on to your Google tools that allows these tools to kind of interact together. The next one I want to show you is something called Pear Deck, and it's relatively new to me. I've known about it for a little while. There's a website called peardeck.com. If you sign up, you get 90 days of premium for free. I haven't bought into the full premium version just yet. It's about $12 a month, I think is what it comes down to if you wanted the premium version. But again, you can get 90 days for free just by signing up for this. But Pear Deck is a way, it's a website where you could create slide decks through their website. However, there's an add-on for Google Chrome or for Google Slides that allows you to turn any slide into an interactive element. So I'm going to go back here, and let's say we were playing around and we just wanted to have a little bit of fun right now. What's the better TV drama of the last 25 years? Well, I need for you to have a way to use the web to actually answer this, and a way for me to actually see your answers. So if you'll notice, my ribbon up here at the top looks a little bit different because I've gone to this add-ons and I've found Pear Deck and I've downloaded it to my account so that I can use it. And it's free. This add-on is completely free. Once I've added it on, notice now I get a link on my menu up here to have my Pear Deck controls. Now I've got these Pear Deck controls that are down the right-hand side here so that I can actually make this slide interactive. So one way I can make it interactive is by using what's called a draggable. And a draggable, for the student side of this, students would see a little colored dot on their screen, and then they can drag it or use their mouse cursor to drag it to where they want their answer or their reply to be. So let me show you what this looks like when we create it. So I just created this little slide right here, just having a little bit of fun. You may feel totally different about TV than I do, and that's okay. That's fine. But if I click draggable, I love the way they inform you on Pear Deck of what's about to happen. So I clicked on draggable and it's showing me an example of here's what students see, here's what you will be able to project in your classroom or show if you're sharing your screen, if you're doing something through Zoom or Google Meets. So if I click next, then I can decide, well, what color or shape dot do I like? So I like the star, and I'm going to make it gold because we're going to give this TV show the gold star of approval. Now, I'm going to give you guys an out. I'm actually going to give you, we'll give you a thumbs down. So if there's a show that you just absolutely hated, if you were like, look, I tried to stick with Lost, but once they got into like season 4, I was lost. It's okay. It happened to us all. I can also make the little draggables larger or smaller. So I'm going to make them about that size. And I'm going to click Update Slide. So Pear Deck is going to add some information to this slide. Notice Pear Deck added this little bottom banner to the bottom of my slide, as well as it added notes into the notes section of this slide, telling me that this is a draggable slide. So I just kind of showed you how the sausage was made there. So let's actually try this out and practice this. So instead of going and hitting the present button up here at the top, I'm going to click the start lesson button, and it's going to tell me everything that I need to do. Now it's going to ask me, and this is really important with Pear Deck, is this something that students are doing at their own pace? So let's say you build this interactive Google slide with Pear Deck, but you're going to load it into Canvas, or you're going to put it into Google Classroom because you want the students to be able to click to the next slide. Or, and this is fabulous for synchronous lessons, you can click and have it be an instructor-paced activity, which means that students cannot go back and forth between slides while I'm presenting. I am going to be the one that controls which slide each device is currently viewing. And again, for synchronous lessons, if you have, if it was a situation where there was staggered instruction next year and half of your students were joining virtually and the other half were in the classroom, you could still use this and control what everybody sees. Now, if you're going to be loading into your learning management system like Canvas or Google Slides or Google Classroom, then you may want the students to pace this out if they're going to be doing work on their own. So I'm going to make this an instructor-paced activity, and it's now going to give us some directions on the screen. Oh, I got to log in. I got to read what's on the screen first. That helps. And I guess I have to do it again. I think I just have too many tabs open and I've totally confused my system here. So I get what's called the teacher dashboard. This is like the presenter controls that are built into Google Slides. These are just a little bit more related to this. So if you want to try this, you can either open a new tab, keep this one open so that you can hear, or you can go on your phone to joinpd.com and type in this code. You don't have to type in determine Viola's award insincere grapes. That's just a little joke that Pear Deck likes to use here. All right.
I'm sorry, would you say that again, please? How do you join?
So very good. If you go to joinpd.com, and PD stands for Pear Deck in this case, joinpd.com, you'll see that on that website, there is a spot to put in a code for the class. I'll go to it. I don't think I can while I'm in this view. Yeah, join a session. So if you go to Join PD, this isn't Join PD. What did I just do? Sorry, there's a lot going on. So we'll go to joinpd.com and it's going to ask you for the code. And let me get the code up for you again. Where am I at? Where am I at? I've totally lost my presentation. Here we go. Oh, sorry about that. All right. 26 of you are currently in and waiting for this to happen. So now 27. So notice you as the teacher see how many students. So you'll know if you're supposed to have 19 students, you can actually see right here from this screen that all 19 students that you have in class today are there and have joined. So I'm actually going to start this. And on your screen, you should be able to drag the yellow star next to the better TV drama. And if you want to do the green thumbs down to the one that stinks, the stinker TV drama, you can drag that on your device wherever you want to put it right now. 27 of 31 responses. If I just hover my mouse, you'll notice I get some information down here on the bottom. I could go forward if I wanted to, but I want everyone who's in here to have a chance to answer. Notice down here at the bottom, I can show the responses as the teacher, so I can project them out so everyone can see it, or I could lock everyone's screens down. So I've now locked everyone's screens, so no one would be able to drag anymore or manipulate or go forward. I could simply click that again to unlock those screens. But now I'm going to click Show Responses. This is how we voted. I like this. So I am now seeing feedback from the class. For some reason, you guys just hate on Better Call Saul. My goodness. And the two of you who voted for The Wire, a man's got to have a code. And you can still see, because I have not locked you out, you're still able to probably move these things around here just a little bit. So yeah, you see, I like, good. And I got a couple Twin Peaks fans. I like it. All right, so I am going to show you. Now, from this little pop-up box, I could the whole time see how you guys were answering here. So again, it's some food for thought. I thought about asking a question like dragging things to different continents. It would be great to use a map in that way, but I am going to right now end this session, and I'm going to call this Test 2020. So it should have ended on your, I've already granted this thing permission like 100 times. It's going to create a Google Doc for me. Notice I could share all the takeaways. There's a button just to link it right to Google Classroom, but there's also a way to access our takeaways from this link here. So again, Pear Deck, look what you can do with Pear Deck. You can do open-ended text questions. So we could just create a text question and students could answer. There's multiple choice. There's number, where you actually are using like whole numbers to answer. You could force students to go to a certain website via a link. You could allow students to free-form draw. I love that for political cartoons. I'm thinking from a civics mindset, having students identify different symbols based on the theme or content that we're talking about. It's so great. You can make your whole background like a political cartoon, and then students can draw on that. And all of this can be done right here from Google Slides. So I don't even have to build in Pear Deck. I could even take a slide deck that I've already created and add some Pear Deck functionality to that slide deck. Which I think is one of the great things. Now, something that if you were part of the PowerPoint session earlier with Suzanne and Jake, I know that some of the content they covered was around like adding voice to slides. And I know there's been a lot of questions of, well, what if I want to narrate to students? What if I want to go through the slide deck and I want them to see my face and I want them to hear? One thing that you can do from Pear Deck that you cannot do from Google Slides by itself is add audio to each slide. And it's really simple. If you click the add audio, it's going to load the recorder, blah, blah, blah. You can capture all the audio of yourself talking, narrating, doing it, whatever you need to do with that slide. You can then pause and save this and then add the audio to the slide. And now you can see up here, audio is included on this slide. So that audio will play. And think about students who are doing Pear Deck self-paced. It may be a good idea for your voice to prompt them or tell them what to do on that particular slide. I know that's one of the biggest challenges of distance learning is not being there in the moment. So being able to record yourself it just adds that element of being there with a student, right? Making sure that your bases are covered. And if you're doing this for, all your classes, you only have to do it once. And then all of those students who are connecting have your voice that goes along with it. And some have asked about like recording myself with like here in this Google Meets. This is a great environment. Again, this is one of those products that's all connected to Google. If you wanted to narrate a slide deck, you do exactly what I'm doing right now. You record yourself through Google Meet presenting, and it's going to show both your screen that you're sharing as well as your face. And you can record and then share that link with students, put it in Canvas, put it in Google Classroom, and then it's there. It's there forever. Unless you need to change something, you can go back and edit or redo it later. But that would be one way that you could connect with students. And my gosh, it's already 2:35 right now. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm getting too excited. I'm going to look here at the chat. Does anybody have any questions? Because now maybe this would be a great time to answer any Google Slides questions that you all have. So I'm gonna wait, and I'm gonna let you turn on your mic or add it into the chat box. Do you have any questions about Google Slides or Pear Deck or Poll Everywhere?
Can you clarify what you meant by adding your presentation into Google Classroom with audio through Google Meets? Do you just do that by recording it?
Yeah, you could just do that by recording it. And so what happens when you record yourself during a Google Meet? This was a question that got asked the other day. Number one, the great thing about recording yourself for students is that no one is in the room with you. You can go to your calendar, click on a date, and add a Google Meet directly from a calendar spot that you're saving. So maybe you want to call this Anaconda Plan Reconstruction. Maybe that's the title of the lesson because you're teaching history. I'm in my history mindset. And you want to record yourself. So you can turn this calendar spot into a Google Meet simply by selecting that. And then when you click join with Google Meet, you're by yourself. So you just start in teaching like someone was there at the other end. And you've got to, when you come here, you've got to remember to actually go to record yourself. When you get done, Google will say, we're going to save this recording in your drive. And so it automatically saves it into your drive as well as puts it back here on this calendar spot. So all you have to do is go back to your calendar. Let me add this. And find that recording. And then you can just put that link, embed that link into Canvas, embed it into Google Classroom, and you're good to go.
Hey, Adam, there's another question. I think you just answered one from April. I want to put the Google Meet recording on my Google Classroom, not the calendar. So I think you just addressed that. But there's another question. I want to use a PDF as a background so students could fill it out like a worksheet.
So, okay, that's a great one. Yeah, let me one thing at a time. Let's go look at it. It lives on. I went through the calendar because it's easier sometimes for me to remember things I did on certain dates. But the recording, like here on last week's event, a recording lives here, but it also lives in my Google Drive. So if I type in, let me use the advanced search, and we'll select video, and we'll select app, because that's what we were talking about. Oh, I don't know what just happened right there. Oh, well, there we go. There it is right here. So it does live in both places. It lives on my calendar as a link, as a placeholder, but that video automatically saves to my Google Drive. So it's right here. So I could then add this into Google Classroom right here from this spot. Now I don't have Google Classroom right now to show you, but I know that you can just link things that live in your drive into your Google Classroom. So it lives in both spots. Now, Rhonda, help me remember, what was the next question? Oh, the next question was about students. Yes, let me show you. So here's a great example. This day I was working with US history teachers, and we were doing some work with the standards. So I treated it just like I would do this in the classroom. I shared this whole presentation and made them editors. But ahead of time, I made a graphic organizer on the slide. So for example, this was blank when I started. All I put were these text boxes and team numbers. So I grouped a few and I said, you few, you're team 1. This group, you're team 2. Go find your slide in the presentation and add to it. So this was a simple text. We were just doing some textual things, but everything that was typed in here was done by that team of teachers together. And so I color coded it because I wanted the teams to see that there's a distinction of their slides, but we were all doing this at the same time in the presentation. So yes, you could turn a graphic organizer that's on a PDF, you could make it a background, but remember, there's still going to have to be text boxes added to it if you want someone to type in there. And of course, students probably in 4th, 5th grade are able to do that. I'm pretty sure of that. But yes, I mean, that's one of the great features of sharing this with students, is creating slides that they're actually creating and adding content to. I saw one teacher doing vocabulary words. So actually, let me see if I can find that, because where I had an article that I was looking at earlier. Let me see if I can find this for you, because this was an interesting. I may not be able to. Yeah, I'm sorry. There was an article that had a template if you wanted to do vocabulary with students, and they were thinking this was upper elementary, lower, um, like sixth, seventh grade. It was a template for a slide where students could type in the vocabulary word. They could paste images that they found onto the slide to help them remember the word. And then they had a space to write out sentences authentically using that vocabulary word or citing where they saw that vocabulary word used. And I, for the life of me, can't remember where I found that. But thinking about students using this for work and research purposes, I do want to draw your attention to this little icon that's down here in the bottom right-hand corner of Google Slides. Now, for years, I knew it was there, but I never clicked on it because I didn't think that it was important. But now I know it is important. This is a great place to teach students to go to do a little bit of research on a topic. So let's say that we were doing, some of the amendments in a civics classroom, and I wanted students to create some slides that will help them remember what each amendment is. So maybe I say group 1, you guys are right to bear arms. Groups 2, your freedom of assembly. Groups 3, no quartering troops in your house, and give them some creative license. If they click this Explore brings Google search to your fingertips for research. So let's say I typed in here, Fourth Amendment into the search. Well, it's going to do a Google web search first and foremost. So I can look up, So I can look at all these different articles. So I don't have to leave slides to do my research. I can do it all from right here. And one thing I love is you can just click and drag an article from that research, and it provides you with a link. So if you're getting those upper elementary, those lower middle school kids to start thinking about citing evidence, this is one way that you can start that conversation. Like, I want to know where you got your research from. All they have to do is come here, click, it opens up in a new window. They can read this information, and then they can simply click and drag this over here, and it helps to resize it a little bit so it's not taking up so much space. But they could also do a Google image search. So if they wanted to include image as part of their research, they could as well. And this image search works a little bit differently than the normal Google image search. And they could also search their drive if there was any document that contained Fourth Amendment that was part of a drive or a shared drive with them. They could simply drag that document over here. I'm wonder what we have here for Fourth Amendment. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, that's the little Explore tab down here at the bottom. So even with things like science, maybe it's inertia, I could look up inertia. I could find some articles about inertia. I could click, I could open right from there, and then I can drag a link over and make it a part of my slide. And I wonder what images they have for inertia. Okay. Oh, here we go. Just drag this image over. This would help me remember if I was doing a vocabulary project. I would want to include that image on my slide as well. All right, any other questions? No, it's that's a good question. Can they access a specific URL? I don't think so. Let's try. Not that you would ever have them go to ebay.com. Oh, but I mean, kind of in a roundabout way, it does, you could put a URL in there and hopefully it would give you the result. I have the option to click there and it'll send me out to Google. So it's just worth playing around. And again, if students are having trouble navigating between windows, it's one way for them to do research right here directly from the Google Slides interface. And it helps you too. I mean, if you are creating slide decks, and let's say you're doing ancient Greece and you're like, I really want an image that pops, you could come here and just directly drag into your presentation an image that you found. Now, if it's huge, you can always resize it. Now, I always resize from a corner. Never resize from the middle, or never resize from the middle. Notice how it warps the image. Now those ladies that are holding up, that are acting as columns there, they get all stretched out. If you always grab from the corner, it's not going to lose the aspect ratio. And here's another cool tip. If you don't want your pictures to be square, although Huey Lewis taught me that it was hip to be square, let's say you don't want them to be so square, you can actually crop with different shapes. So there's a couple ways to crop. I got my image selected. I could click the crop button, or if you want to be slick, you can just double click the image. And if you come up here, you can actually pick different shapes. So if I click that and I hit enter, now my image does not have square borders anymore. Now it's this elliptical shape, and I can just drag that and do whatever I want with it. So that's cropping using a masking tool. So just like this cat, I can double click, I can come up here to these crop tools, and I could, let's turn the cat into an arrow. And now that becomes an arrow instead of a meme. So that's another way to crop and get a different shape out of your crop. All right, any questions? Anyone want to turn on their mic and ask away?
Are there any other add-ons you think we should know about?
So yeah, there's so many. If you're a math teacher, I know that there is, I want something more recent. I know that there are some formula editors for Google Docs and Google Slides. If you are teaching mathematics, that gives you all of the different characters and you can graph and things like that. But I, for the life of me, can't remember. But let's look for, let's look here at one of these lists. Nope, don't want that. So Lucidchart is a way to do mind mapping or concept mapping through Lucidchart. There's Pear Deck and the Pear Deck Atom. There's one for Adobe stock images. So if you want to search through the stock images of the Adobe company, you can do that as well. There's an audio player that you can add on, again, if you want your voice to appear on a slide. Here is the math equations. Yep, and I guess it is just called math equations. But this allows you to build out those equations and place them to where they don't look wonky or hokey. And again, if you're unsure about add-ons, if you just open up any Google Doc and go to add-ons and click Get Add-ons, it's going to take you to this main page. You could search, you could do let's say reading. Oh, there's nothing good. Accessibility checker. So again, if you're going to publish to the web and you want to see, are my slides accessible to those that may have disabilities like color blindness, things like that, this add-on will actually go through and check your slides and make sure that you've got captions on pictures, things like that, so everyone can use it. Let's look up teaching. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, that's feedback. But you can go through and look at this whole entire list. Most of them are all free. If you notice these little icons, they'll tell you which application it can be used with. So is it for slides? Is it for docs? Is it for both? There's another accessibility checker. Here's equation editor again. Music notation. I think we did have some music instructors with us, so you can do music notations with that. Translators, built-in translators, so any Spanish, French teachers out there, that may be a little bit fun to use. But good questions. There's so much being more added. Magic Rainbow Unicorns. So if you want to add Rainbow Font Tool to your slides, you could do it through adding this.
Adam, there was a question from Tracy Eppenhauer about the Poll Everywhere add-on.
Oh, that I think is not an add-on, but an actual extension. Let me try and go back.
That is correct, Adam, because I tried to do it as an add-on and I couldn't find it either. I had to go into the website itself.
Yeah, so it is a Chrome extension. It's something that lives on my browser versus living on the app. So if I go Chrome extension, Poll Everywhere, there we go. It's actually in the Chrome Web Store, Poll Everywhere for Google Slides. It's a little bit confusing, but like I said earlier, Rome wasn't built in a day. And if you have a student or a husband or a wife, someone that you can practice sharing settings with, practice building a Pear Deck and say, all right, get your phone out, go to this website, try this out, does it work? That's going to be the difference maker, is just getting your hands in there and getting a little bit dirty. And since a lot of us are staying home right now, I'm sure a lot of you have captive audiences that you're looking for something for them to do right now. So there's nothing better than having a student or someone at the house help you learn how to use these different things, these different tools. Any other questions before we end?
Adam, I'm not sure if you answered it. Ron, I had to take over. Rhonda had to step out. Can they access specific URL from Explore?
Oh yeah, we looked at that. Yeah, you can type it in and it'll do a web search. It won't take you directly there, but yeah.
All right, awesome. I just didn't want to miss a question. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Anything else for the good of the group?
One thing about doing add-ons versus extensions, my tech person at school disengaged a lot of my add-ons because he said that it was causing my computer to slow down. Is there a difference?
Not really. I know exactly what he's saying. If you notice up here on my toolbar, these are all extensions. And when these guys are on and running, it can make browsing the internet a little bit slower. If you've got an older computer with an older processor too, that doesn't help the cause. But some of these guys you can actually turn, like you can remove, you can turn off temporarily. So it just depends on which ones you have. Right now, I feel like a happy balance between what I need for Google Docs and what I need for my browser. But yes, it can cause performance issues. It just depends upon your machine and internet access.
So you should be picky and choose what you really, really want.
Yes, you should. And Poll Everywhere is something that you don't have to use with an extension. You can take students directly to the website, but it would be more about if you wanted to embed that during a lesson and you wanted it to be seamless with your slide deck, then you would use the extension to have it appear seamlessly. But again, you don't have to. You could use Poll Everywhere in isolation just by going to the website, and you could kind of get around that.
Thank you.
No
Oh,
problem.
and I morphed my computer since you had yours black. I went and got an add-on and turned mine black.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Now you're hot rod, and that's what this is all about, right?
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh. Anything else before we end? I thank you guys for sticking in there with me. I know I threw a lot at you. There's no way to learn it all in 2 hours, and you just got to stick with it. Like I said, if you've got a captive audience at home, there ain't nothing better to make them help you out just a little bit, okay? Thank you so much. If you need me, email me. I'll type my email address into the chat box if you want to write it down. Email me between now and then. And like I said, I'll update the invite for this as well whenever the recording actually renders itself.